AITA for booking a penthouse to spite my mom after she kicked me out of our room? My name is Maya, and I am 28 years old. On the third day of our vacation in the Caribbean, my mother looked at me with cold eyes and said, "Pack your suitcase." I watched as she took my clothes out of the closet and threw them into the hallway, right in front of my sister Megan and her kids who had just shown up without any warning. They wanted my room. My father just shrugged and said I could look for another hotel. I did not scream. I did not beg. I grabbed my purse, left the room, and walked straight to the front desk. I asked the receptionist, "Do you still have that penthouse available?" Just a week earlier, the atmosphere had been completely different. I had driven to my parents' house in the suburbs with my own exciting news burning in my chest. When I walked in, something felt off. There was a strange excitement in the air. Megan's kids were jumping around more than usual, and my parents were grinning from ear to ear. "What is going on?" I asked, hanging my coat in the hall closet. Mom and Dad exchanged happy glances. "We have made a decision," Dad announced. "We are all going on a family vacation to the Caribbean. You can get the time off, right?" I thought about it. I had not taken a real vacation in 2 years, and my new role at work had just started to settle in. There were no major projects on the horizon for the next few weeks. "Yes, I have plenty of vacation days saved up," I said. Mom's face instantly broke into a wide smile. "Wonderful. The whole family together in the Caribbean is going to be perfect." Her reaction caught me by surprise. She seemed genuinely happy that I was going. It was a nice change. For a moment, I let myself feel included. "We leave in 2 weeks, Dad explained. "We have been planning this for a while, but we wanted to make sure everyone could go before telling you." I sat down, letting my own news take a back seat. Family vacation could be nice, I thought. Maybe things would be different away from our usual routines. Maybe they would see me differently. Dinner went by with everyone talking about the Caribbean. What to pack. What places to visit. What activities to do. For once, they were not completely ignoring me, even though most of the questions directed at me were practical rather than personal. "Maya, you are sure you have enough PTO?" Dad asked. "Yes, I can take those 10 days without a problem," I replied. This dynamic, this constant focus on everyone but me was the story of my life. I have always been the other daughter. I am the one who is mentioned in passing, if mentioned at all. Every Saturday, I used to drive out to my parents' house for our traditional family dinner. Although lately, I had been making up more and more excuses not to go. A month before the trip announcement, a typical Saturday dinner had unfolded. I parked my sedan in front of their modest 2-story home in a quiet suburb and took a deep breath before going in. As expected, my older sister Megan was already there. Her husband, Mark, was by her side, while their kids, Emily and Jacob, ran around the living room. "Maya, you are finally here," my mom said. She barely looked up from arranging a floral centerpiece, offering no hug and no real welcome. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad." I greeted them, nodding toward my father who was busy talking to Mark about a football game. "Did you hear about the parent-teacher conference for Emily?" Mom immediately went into sister-worshipping mode. "The teacher said Emily is reading 2 grade levels above her age, and Jacob's soccer coach thinks he could make the travel team next year." Megan was glowing, absorbing the attention like a sponge. "Well, it is just that I have been using some special reading flashcards with Emily every night, and I take Jacob to extra skills clinics 3 times a week." I sat in silence at the table, my existence barely registered. Nobody asked about my week, my job, or my life. They never do. What they did not know, what they never bothered to ask, was that 3 months ago I had closed a massive project at work that saved our biggest client from a potential disaster. I work at a multinational consulting firm in downtown Chicago. For that project, I received a huge 6-figure bonus, a promotion to senior project manager, and a salary increase that put my income way above what my family imagined, even higher than Mark's. "Pass the potatoes, Maya," Megan said, giving me that look. It was the look that said, "Poor Maya, still single, still renting that small apartment downtown, still a nobody." I passed the potatoes and took a sip of wine. Another little secret of mine was that I had asked my friend Jasmine, who is a real estate agent, to help me look for a condo to buy. I had saved enough for the down payment, and with my new salary, the mortgage was not going to be a problem. but why tell them? They would find a way to make it about Megan, or they would be shocked that I could afford it, which would be even worse. The rest of the dinner went on as usual. There was more praise for Megan, more talk about Mark's job, and more stories about the perfect kids. I stayed quiet, letting the words wash over me without affecting me. What they thought of me had stopped mattering a long time ago. A month after that dinner, Jasmine called me with exciting news. She had found the perfect condo. It was a 2-bedroom corner unit with a balcony and a modern kitchen in a trendy, growing neighborhood. I visited it that same afternoon and fell in love immediately. "This is it," I said, running my hand over the quartz countertop. "I want to make an offer." 2 weeks later, I signed the mortgage papers. I was officially a homeowner. The feeling was indescribable. It was a mix of pride, achievement, and freedom. I thought about telling my family, but I decided to wait until the next Saturday dinner, which turned out to be the day they announced the trip to the Caribbean. I decided to save the news of my condo for after the vacation. I would let the Caribbean be the center of attention for now. My new home would still be there when we returned. And so, I started my own preparations. During the following week, I took care of everything related to my vacation. I put in my time off request for 10 days at work, which my boss approved immediately, grateful for the success of my recent project. I packed my suitcase, put a hold on my mail, and mentally prepared myself for 10 days with my parents, without Megan as a buffer. The day before our departure, Mom called to confirm the plans. "We have booked 2 rooms," she said. "One for your father and me, and a single one for you. They are standard rooms, nothing luxurious but comfortable." "Sounds perfect," I replied, secretly relieved that we were not going to share a room. "See you tomorrow at O'Hare." After hanging up, I looked around my old, almost empty apartment. Most of my things were already at my new place, but I had left enough to keep up appearances until after the trip. I still had not told my family I had bought a place. I decided to surprise them when we returned. The next morning, I met my parents at the airport. We checked in, went through security, and a few hours later we were landing in the Caribbean. The humid, warm air hit me in the face as soon as we got off the plane, mixed with the smell of salt and sunscreen. Despite my reservations about spending so much time with my parents, I felt a wave of excitement. Our hotel was about 20 minutes from the airport. It was a mid-range resort with a large pool and direct access to the beach. During check-in, I spoke with the receptionist, a friendly woman named Sophie. "We are fully booked in the standard rooms," she told me. "You were very lucky to book in advance. Right now, we only have the luxury suites and the penthouses left, and they are quite a bit more expensive." I nodded, taking the room key she handed me. "Thank you for the information." My room was simple but clean, with a double bed, a small balcony, and a bathroom with a shower. After unpacking, I changed into shorts and a t-shirt and joined my parents at the pool for a drink. We spent that day and the next exploring the resort, swimming in the ocean, and adjusting to the relaxed pace of life. The truth is, it was pleasant. My parents were more relaxed there, less focused on comparing me to Megan, and I discovered that I enjoyed their company more than I had in years. But on the third day, everything changed. I was putting on sunscreen in my room, getting ready for a morning at the beach, when I heard loud knocks on the door. When I opened it, I found my parents with worried expressions. Behind them was Megan, looking disheveled, with Emily and Jacob clinging to her hands. "Megan, what are you doing here?" I said, stunned. Megan dropped dramatically onto my bed. "Mark and I had another huge fight," she said. "I could not stay in that house for another minute. So I took some cash from his wallet and bought plane tickets for me and the kids." "You took money from Mark?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. Megan looked at me with anger. "It is our money, even if he controls everything. I deserve this vacation and so do the kids." Mom nodded, supporting her. "Of course you did the right thing, sweetie. But where are you going to stay?" I asked, looking at their luggage. "Did you book a room?" Megan and my parents looked at each other. "That is the problem," Megan suddenly said in a tiny voice. "I had enough for the flights but not for the hotel. I thought maybe." Then the reality of what was happening hit me. I remembered what Sophie had told me at the front desk. All the standard rooms were occupied. There was nothing available, except the penthouses, which were much more expensive. "Exactly," Dad said, now looking directly at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. The room filled with silence. Everyone was looking at me with expectant expressions. Finally, Mom broke the silence. Maya, you have to pack your suitcase. What? I asked, sure I had heard wrong. Pack your suitcase, she repeated firmly. Megan and the kids need your room. I looked at their faces, taking in Mom's determination, Dad's expectation, and Megan's air of entitlement. A wave of anger rose inside me. And where exactly am I supposed to go? I asked, crossing my arms. Dad shrugged. You can look for another hotel, or go back home early if you cannot find anything. Megan deserves this vacation more than you, Mom added, as if that settled it. She has been through so much with Mark. I looked at them in disbelief. Are you serious? You want me to give up my room, which I already paid for and am staying in, so Megan can stay here after she took money and showed up unannounced? Enough. Mom's voice was sharp. This is not up for discussion. And then, to my absolute shock, she went to my closet, took out my suitcase and started throwing my clothes inside. Mom, stop it! I yelled, trying to take the suitcase from her, but she ignored me, continuing to shove my things in. When she finished, she zipped it up and pushed it into the hallway outside my room. There, she said. Now Megan and the kids can get settled. I stood paralyzed, unable to process what was happening. Megan was already instructing the kids to put their little backpacks on the bed. On my bed. Dad was moving my toiletries into a small plastic bag. I could have fought. I could have called the front desk and asked to have them removed because the room was in my name. I could have made a scene that the hotel staff would remember for years. But at that moment, looking at these people who were supposed to be my family, I felt something inside me break and then turn into something harder and clearer. Without saying a word, I grabbed my purse, turned around and walked out, leaving my suitcase in the hallway. I could hear my parents and Megan already discussing how they were going to arrange themselves to sleep. My first impulse was to book the next flight back to Chicago, but as I approached the reception desk, a better idea occurred to me. I suddenly remembered the luxury penthouses Sophie had mentioned. Sophie looked up when she saw me arrive. Her friendly smile faltered when she noticed my expression. Ms. Miller, is everything okay? She asked. Honestly, no, I said truthfully, but I am about to fix it. You mentioned you had penthouses available. Her eyes widened slightly. Yes, we do, but they are significantly more expensive than the standard rooms. How much more expensive? I asked. She told me the figure, an amount that would have made me faint 2 years ago. Now I did not even blink. Between the bonus and my new salary, for the first time in my life, I had enough savings to treat myself to such a luxury without going into debt or asking anyone for permission. I will take one, I said. The best one you have, please. I followed the bellhop who had gone to retrieve my suitcase from the hallway in front of my old room. We took a private elevator to the top floor, and when he opened the door to my new suite, I could not hold back a gasp. The penthouse was stunning. It was spacious and elegantly decorated, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the ocean. The living room opened to a dining area and a fully equipped kitchen. Beyond that was a huge bedroom with the biggest bed I had ever seen in my life. I found a complimentary bottle of champagne. I poured myself a glass and went out to the terrace. The sun was setting over the water, tinting the sky in bright oranges and pinks. Leaning on the railing, I raised my glass. To knowing your worth, I said out loud and took a long drink. That night I slept better than I had in years, spread out on a king-size bed with sheets that felt like clouds. In the morning I was woken up by a soft knock. It was room service bringing a complimentary breakfast. After eating on the terrace, I decided to go down to the beach. As I crossed the lobby, I saw my parents and Megan with the kids near the entrance. They were heading out, surely to look for a cheap diner for breakfast because the hotel's restaurant was too expensive for them. Megan saw me first. Maya, there you are. She waved at me, as if we were any family meeting up on vacation. I approached slowly with a neutral expression. So, Mom said with a smug smile, where did you end up sleeping last night? Did you find another hotel? Dad, at least, had the decency to look a little uncomfortable. Before I could answer, Sophie appeared at my side. Ms. Miller, I wanted to confirm your cabana reservation for this afternoon, she said. As our VIP guest, we have reserved the best spot on the beach for you. Will your family be joining you for lunch today, Ms. Miller? My family's expression shifted from smug to confused. VIP guest? Mom repeated. Sophie smiled broadly. Yes, Ms. Miller is staying in our master suite, the penthouse. That is why she has access to all our exclusive services, including the gourmet restaurant with a private dining room. Will your family be joining you for lunch today, Ms. Miller? She repeated kindly. No, I said calmly. They will not be joining me. Very well. Enjoy your breakfast at the corner cafe, Sophie said to my family, referring to the cheap diner on the corner where tourists on a tight budget went. With a casual wave, I continued towards the beach, feeling lighter than I had in years. I spent the day enjoying all the comforts of the hotel. I went to the spa for a massage. I rested in my private cabana while the staff brought me tropical drinks, and I swam in the ocean when the sun got too strong. Not once did I think about my family. That evening, I returned to my penthouse to shower and change for dinner. The hotel's gourmet restaurant had a dress code, and I had packed a simple black dress that was perfect. I was just putting on my earrings when there was a knock on the door. Through the peephole, I saw my whole family, including the kids, standing in the hallway with their suitcases. I seriously considered pretending I was not there, but curiosity won. I opened the door without stepping away from the frame to block the entrance. What do you want? I asked. Without waiting for an invitation, my mom slipped into the suite, followed by my dad, Megan, and the kids. They stood in the living room, their mouths agape at the luxury around them. Mom reacted first. Maya, we have decided that we are going to stay here with you for the rest of the vacation. I blinked, sure I had misheard. Excuse me. We already checked out of our rooms, Dad explained, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. Megan and the kids also left your old room. We are all going to stay here. There is plenty of space, Megan added, already eyeing the huge sofa, as if measuring if someone could sleep there. I laughed. I could not help it. No, I said when I could finally speak. You are not going to stay here. This is my suite. I am paying for it, and you are not welcome. Megan took a step forward, using that sweet, wheedling tone she uses when she wants something. Come on, Maya, do not be selfish. Look at all this space. We are family, Mom added. What are your aunts going to say if they find out you kicked us out? Family, I repeated, feeling the anger rise again. Family does not kick someone out of their room. Family does not turn someone else's vacation into their problem. Family asks about your life and celebrates your achievements. This is ridiculous, Megan blurted out. We already gave up our rooms. That sounds like a you problem, I said, throwing back at them the same words they had used with me. Now, please leave before I call security. They did not move. They started arguing loudly, everyone talking at the same time. Megan's voice prevailed over the others. You are being incredibly selfish. I have children. I picked up the hotel phone. I am going to call the front desk. That silenced them instantly. I asked them to send security to my room to remove some people who were refusing to leave. When I hung up, my family's faces had gone from entitled rage to pure panic. You cannot be serious, Mom said. Completely serious, I replied. And where are we supposed to go? Megan asked, her voice cracking. The standard rooms are all booked. There was a knock on the door. Hotel security had arrived quickly. I opened it and saw Sophie with 2 guards. Is there a problem, Ms. Miller? She asked. Yes, I said. These people need to leave my room, and they are refusing. Sophie turned to my family. I am afraid I am going to have to ask you to come with me. Wait, Mom said desperately. We cannot get our rooms back. Sophie shook her head with a sympathetic gesture. I am sorry, but as I mentioned when you checked out, those rooms have already been assigned to new guests. We are in the middle of high season, and they are now occupied. As they were escorted out, my mother turned to me. This is not over, Maya. At that moment, I knew something had broken forever between us, and for the first time it did not hurt as much as it should have. I closed the door without answering and went back out to the terrace. My cell phone vibrated with messages from Mom. We are in a cheap motel called Palm Budget Inn. A single room for the 5 of us. The bathroom smells like mold. I hope you are happy. And from Megan. The kids are crying because their beds are dirty. How could you do this to them? I turned off the phone and set it aside. Their attempts to manipulate me might have worked before, but not anymore. I was only responsible for myself, and for the first time in my life I was putting myself first. The rest of my vacation was a delight. I deliberately kept my phone turned off most of the time. I only turned it on once a day to make sure there was no real emergency. The furious messages from my family continued for 2 days and then stopped abruptly. I learned later from the hotel staff that they had left the cheap motel and moved their flight home up. Mom left a message at the front desk that just said, "We are going back home. I hope you are satisfied." I was, in fact, more than satisfied. I spent the remaining days swimming in the ocean, taking a hike to a waterfall, going on a sunset cruise, and generally doing whatever I pleased. Without the weight of family expectations and judgments, I felt like someone else. I felt lighter, happier, and free. As the plane took off and I watched the Caribbean shrink beneath me, I did not feel sad but determined. This vacation had been a turning point. There was no going back. Upon landing at O'Hare, I took a cab straight to my new condo, where I had already moved most of my things before the trip. It was still sparsely furnished, but it was mine. I walked from room to room, making mental lists of what I still needed. The next day I would go buy a proper dining table, maybe some art for the walls. I had time to turn this place into something truly mine. 2 weeks after returning, I already felt completely settled in my new home and back at work. I immersed myself in a new project, using the confidence I had gained by setting boundaries with my family to speak up more in meetings and take on more responsibilities. One afternoon my phone rang. It was Mom's number. I had been expecting the call, but I still felt a jolt when I answered. "Hello, Maya. Where are you?" Mom's voice sounded accusatory. "We went by your old apartment, and the landlord said you do not live there anymore." "That is right," I replied calmly. "I moved." There was a pause, and then Mom spoke again, her tone suddenly sweet and curious. "You moved? Where to? Can you give us your new address? I think it is time we see each other and fix things. What am I going to tell your aunts when they ask about you?" In the background, Megan's voice could be heard whispering something urgently. "I bought my own place," I said. "With a mortgage." Absolute silence on the other end, followed by muffled exclamations. "You bought a condo?" Mom finally said. "When? How?" "About 2 months ago. I was promoted and given a major raise last year, plus a very large bonus for a project. With that, I was able to make the down payment, and the bank approved the mortgage without any problems." "And why didn't you tell us?" There was a hint of offense in her voice, but it did not move me. "When was I supposed to tell you?" I asked. "During all those dinners where you only talked about Megan? Or maybe during the vacation where you kicked me out of my own hotel room?" Another longer silence. "We should meet and talk about all this," Mom said at last. "Families should not be estranged. What is your address? We will come over on the weekend." I took a deep breath. "No, Mom. I am not going to give you my address, and I do not want to see you right now. I need space from all of you." "Maya," her voice became shrill. "We are your family. You cannot just cut us off." "Actually, I can," I replied. "And until you understand why your behavior was unacceptable, that is exactly what I am going to do." I hung up before she could reply, my heart racing but my decision firm. During the following months, my family tried everything to resume contact. They tried calls, messages, and emails to my work account, sometimes using an angry tone, sometimes begging, and sometimes manipulating. I deleted most of them without reading them fully. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Megan and Mark were having serious problems. The Caribbean incident had been the final straw, and now they were heading for divorce. I felt a moment of pity for my niece and nephew, but no surprise. The whole dynamic of control and entitlement that I had experienced was now imploding in her own marriage. As for me, I was flourishing. I had been promoted again. I made new friends in a hiking group and even started dating someone I met at a conference. My condo was fully furnished and decorated exactly as I wanted. It was my sanctuary. Sometimes I thought about reconciling with my family, Maybe someday if they showed real remorse and a desire to change. But I was not holding my breath or putting my life on pause waiting for that to happen. I would keep moving forward. My life was just beginning, and for the first time it truly felt like mine. Comment. I truly believe that understanding your own worth is the most powerful journey any of us can undertake. It is about learning to set clear boundaries, not just with others, but for your own well-being. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to choose peace over constant struggle. Taking responsibility for your own happiness means recognizing when a dynamic is no longer serving you. Remember, drawing a line is not an act of selfishness. It is a vital step toward self-preservation and growth. True healing often begins when we prioritize our mental and emotional space. Your life story deserves you as its central character, not just a footnote in someone else's narrative. I hope this reflection encourages you to honor your needs and cultivate relationships that genuinely uplift you. You deserve a life filled with respect, genuine connection, and profound inner peace. Let us all strive to build a world where valuing ourselves is seen as a strength, not a flaw. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.